Greetings, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a subject to you today that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is contraception. Everybody's got a feeling about it, seems like, and I'm going to tackle this subject like I usually do with my videos, and that is to be objective and unbiased, I hope, and share a perspective, at least one perspective, that may not be common or well understood for the purpose of helping people make better decisions, better informed decisions. That's the goal. So get right into it here. Now, the subject of contraception, as far as I'm concerned, is very closely related to the question of abortion and whether it is proper or permissible. And this is these questions, these types of questions are you can think about them as being in a class of questions where people are preoccupied with some unilateral answer. Let me say that again. The conversations that I've always heard, the debates, the arguments are usually centered about the idea that there should be one answer for everybody. Okay, well, this gets into the subject of rules, right? And if you're familiar with any of my videos, I mention rules in about at least half of them. So the idea is that a rule cannot be fair to everybody. And I think most people are aware of that. That shouldn't be a big shocker, but they don't realize the problem specifically. That is, when you make a unilateral rule that is designed or intended to fit everybody or apply to everybody, you're not being fair. There's just really no fair way to do it. And it's not appropriate. It's not equitable. It is perhaps equal, but only in the sense that any rule is equally unfair to everybody by inappropriately empowering half of them and inappropriately limiting the other half who don't need the rule. So what is the answer? What is a practical solution? I'm going to keep this video really short, and I'm going to get right back to the original subject here in a second. What is a practical solution? Well, you have something called guidelines, which isn't necessarily a rule, but might include individual circumstances, things that are relevant, pertinent to a particular situation or context, right? There's the word context. What is the context? Maybe the rule doesn't depend on the snapshot. Maybe the rule depends on the context, and therefore you can have kind of a guideline or a flexible rule that provides wisdom or direction in the event of certain things, but is subject to review or cancellation, perhaps. Let me get back to the original idea of contraception. Contraception is absolutely medically necessary for some people. I'm going to start with that. There are people whose bodies are known to be problematic when it comes to reproduction. And this is a real medical condition where if somebody or a particular woman gets pregnant, she might just literally die because of known hereditary problems or some physiological defect or something. But anyway, this is a very small minority. So I'm going to start with that. These people exist. So we already know, what do we know? Logically, we know that some people, their lives depend on either not having sex, which isn't fair, or using contraception. So we have an example, but if we're going to get to the truth of it, the honesty of it, we already know that contraception is appropriate sometimes. So the question becomes, when might it not be? And why wouldn't it ever be? These are logical follow-up questions. It turns out that there are trade-offs. I'm almost at 5 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up. Like with the question of abortion, sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. And to say that no one should ever do it, well, that's just stupid. To say that it should be, anybody's choice, no matter how drunk or crazy they are, that's also inappropriate if you ask me. And the same goes for contraception. Well, what are the trade-offs? So let me just get down to it. So we being modern academia, people who have studies themselves, that is to say, human sexuality and behavior, there are provable, repeatable, predictable features of human behavior where you have what's called, and most of the viewers have heard of this, serial monogamy. What is that? What causes serial monogamy? What causes a person or a couple to fall out of love repeatedly, habitually? Is it a problem? Could that be a problem for people, for society, or individuals? If you ask me, it is. I think I don't like to see people break up. I like to see people be happy. I like to see people fall in love and stay in love, whatever it takes, you know. But there are things that contribute to people breaking up. It turns out, and like I was just saying, this is measurable, predictable, reproducible. There's tons of data and examples to cite. When somebody lacks the incentive, the emotional incentive to bond with somebody else, that is to say, when there's no stake, when there is no danger, no risk. What is the role of risk? I've talked about this before. What happens when you remove risk? Well, it affects your bottom line. If you're thinking in terms of investment or any kind of risk, it affects your bottom line as a multiplier. And when risk is zero, you have no reward. There is no emotional reward. There's no financial reward. If you're gambling and there's no risk, you can expect to not win anything. And it's kind of the same in love. It really is. If there's nothing on the line, if nobody's vulnerable, and it makes no difference tomorrow whether this person's there or not because there's nothing at stake, your heart already knows. It's not stupid. It knows that it's safer to not attach. It's safer to avoid it. And that's what it does, turns out. So you find serial monogamists. You find lots and lots of flings, one night stands, things that never really seem to go anywhere. There's no spark, and it's because there's no danger of pregnancy. And I'm not saying everybody should get pregnant or should be able to get pregnant. I'm just saying it changes things when you remove that component. What is contraception? It's an unfortunate medical necessity for some people, and it's a risk destroyer for the rest of us. So maybe you want it, maybe you don't, but be informed. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Make good decisions for yourself and your partner. Be honest, be healthy, be happy. And if you have questions, please reach out. Change my mind. It's whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Have a great day.